Welcome. What you are about to watch is not science fiction, and it is not folklore. It is a serious investigation into one of history's most compelling unresolved questions, the mystery of Ice Age cave art, the 40,000-year-old paintings that rewrote human history. Across the world, in universities, research institutes, and field excavations, serious scholars are wrestling with evidence that does not fit the accepted story. Evidence that has been documented, measured, and peer-reviewed, and that still has no satisfying conventional explanation. We are going to look at that evidence carefully, without prejudice in either direction. Not dismissing what is extraordinary, but not accepting it without scrutiny either. The truth, as always, is in the details. 45,000 years ago, a human hand pressed against the wall of a limestone cave on the Indonesian island of Sulawesi and blue-red ochre around it, leaving a stencil that would survive longer than any empire, any city, any written language in human history. When scientists dated that handprint in 2019, the date they returned appended everything archaeologists thought they knew about when and where the human mind became fully modern. For a century, the story of cave art was a European story. Lascaux, Altamira, Chauvet, chambers deep inside French and Spanish rock, filled with horses, aurochs, and lions rendered with a naturalistic confidence that still startles professional artists. But the Sulawesi discovery shattered that comfortable narrative. The same art was being made on the other side of the world at the same moment. And now, a 2023 analysis of a Sulawesi cave scene, a group of human-like figures hunting pigs, has returned a date of 51,200 years, making it the oldest known narrative scene in human history by a margin of thousands of years. Something happened to the human mind deep in the Ice Age. But what exactly, and why then, remains unanswered. This is where our investigation begins. Stay with us, because the further we go into the evidence, the more extraordinary it becomes. The story you think you know is only the surface. Beneath it lies something far more remarkable. Let us begin. Before we examine the specific evidence, we need to step back and understand the context. This case does not exist in isolation. It sits within the global puzzle of unexplained ancient construction, and to properly evaluate what we are looking at, we need to understand the broader picture that surrounds it. The sky was the original clock, calendar, and map. Before writing, before money, before cities, human beings looked up and organized their lives around what they saw. The position of the sun at solstice told them when to plant and when to harvest. The rising of specific stars marked the seasons. The phases of the moon governed ceremonial calendars in cultures from Ireland to India. Our ancestors were not casual observers of the night sky. They were meticulous, obsessive, and precise in a way that rivals modern astronomical science. This precision is encoded in stone at sites around the world. Newgrange in Ireland is aligned so precisely that sunlight enters its inner chamber only during the 5 days around the winter solstice, and it has done so every year for more than 5,000 years. The pyramids of Giza are oriented to true north with an accuracy of 0.05 degrees. Stonehenge tracks both the midsummer sunrise and the midwinter sunset, as well as the 18-6-year lunar cycle. These alignments are not accidental. They were engineered with mathematical precision by cultures we have long underestimated. What drove this obsession with celestial mechanics? Partly practical. Agriculture depends on knowing the seasons, but partly something more profound. Ancient cultures believed the sky was alive, that the movements of stars and planets determined the fates of kingdoms and harvests. In this worldview, encoding celestial cycles into permanent stone was not merely useful but sacred. The great monuments of the ancient world are, among other things, the most durable clocks ever built. This context matters because it tells us something important. What we are about to investigate is not an isolated curiosity. It is part of a pattern that researchers in multiple fields have been independently documenting for decades. And patterns in science demand explanation. With that foundation in place, let us now turn to the specific case at hand. Now we reach the heart of the matter, the core evidence surrounding Ice Age cave art, The 40,000-year-old paintings that rewrote human history is more extensive, more verified, and more troubling for conventional explanations than most people realize. Let us walk through it systematically, fact by fact, and allow the evidence to speak for itself. We are not going to speculate here. Every point that follows is documented in peer-reviewed publications, official archaeological records, or government archives that are publicly accessible. The question is not whether these facts are real. The question is what they mean. Consider this first extraordinary detail. Chauvet Cave in southern France contains paintings dated to approximately 36,000 years before present, including lions, rhinoceroses, and bears, rendered with such compositional sophistication that they were initially suspected to be modern forgeries. More than 350 decorated prehistoric caves are now known in Europe alone, ranging from Portugal to the Urals. This single data point, if taken in isolation, might be set aside. Anomalies happen, instruments malfunction, researchers make mistakes. But as we continue, you will see that this is not an isolated anomaly. It is part of a consistent and documented pattern. But that is only the beginning. Researchers also discovered. In 2019, Maxime Orbert and colleagues published uranium-thorium dates for cave paintings in Sulawesi, Indonesia, in the journal Nature, confirming a Sulawesi pig painting at 500 years old, older than any European cave art then known. A 2023 study of the same complex returned a date of 200 years for a figurative hunting scene, the world's oldest confirmed narrative art. Now, a skeptic might propose an alternative explanation for this, and that is entirely reasonable. We should always test alternative explanations before accepting extraordinary ones. The problem is that the alternative explanations, when examined carefully, create more problems than they solve. The mystery deepens when we examine. The Lion Man of Hohenstein Stadel is a carved ivory figurine 40,000 years old and 7 centimeters tall, depicting a human body with a lion's head. It is the earliest confirmed therianthrope, a human-animal hybrid figure in the archaeological record, suggesting fully symbolic, mythological thought at the very dawn of European modern human occupation. This is where the conventional account begins to strain. Each individual fact might be dismissed or minimized in isolation. But the cumulative weight of the evidence is another matter entirely. Perhaps most remarkable of all, pigments used in Ice Age cave art included red and yellow ochre, charcoal, and manganese dioxide, ground into powder and mixed with animal fat or water. Mineral sourcing analysis has traced pigment supplies to specific geological outcrops kilometers from the cave sites, demonstrating deliberate, planned procurement rather than opportunistic use of local materials. Researchers who have examined this evidence have described it as genuinely difficult to explain within the accepted framework. These are not fringe commentators. They are credentialed academics publishing in mainstream journals, raising questions that the field has not yet satisfactorily answered. Then there is the matter of Altamira Cave in northern Spain, whose ceiling is covered in bison painted roughly 14,000 years ago, was discovered in 1879 and immediately dismissed by the French archaeological establishment as forgeries too skilled to be prehistoric. The site was not accepted as genuine until 1902, after the discoverer Marcelino Sanz de Sortuola had died without receiving recognition. What makes this particularly significant is its independence from the previous points. This is not a case of one theory requiring another. These are separate lines of evidence converging on the same uncomfortable conclusion. Adding to the enigma is this finding: finger flutings, lines drawn through soft cave surfaces with the fingers, found in sites in Clud. In Rouffignac Cave, France, include marks that match the hand sizes of children as young as 2 to 3 years old. Far from being the exclusive domain of specialist shamans or artists, Cave art appears to have been a community activity in which children actively participated. Taken together, these facts form a pattern that cannot be explained by coincidence, misidentification, or methodological error. Each piece of evidence has been examined by skeptics. Each has been subjected to alternative explanations, and in each case, the alternative explanation falls short of accounting for everything that has been documented. We are left with a body of evidence that demands explanation and an accepted narrative that does not provide one. This is where serious inquiry begins. Now that we have established the evidence, we need to examine the theories that researchers have proposed to explain Ice Age cave art, the 40,000-year-old paintings that rewrote human history. This is where the debate becomes most intense, because the theories reflect not just different interpretations of the same evidence, but fundamentally different assumptions about what is possible and what the past looked like. Understanding these theories is not just an academic exercise. Each one has been championed by serious researchers with genuine credentials, and each one captures something that the others miss. The truth, if it is ever established, will likely draw on elements of several. The first major explanation proposed by researchers holds that art functioned as cognitive mapping of territory and animal resources, a practical mnemonic system helping hunters recall migration routes, prey behavior, and seasonal availability. This view, associated with researchers including Clive Gamble, treats art as adaptive information storage. Its main objection is that it cannot explain the extreme inaccessibility of many painted chambers, which required torches and crawling and offered no practical viewing audience. This interpretation has significant academic support and is backed by substantial evidence, but it is not without problems. Critics point out that it requires assumptions that go beyond what the evidence strictly supports, and that key predictions of this theory have not been confirmed by subsequent research. It remains contested, and the contest is productive. A rival school of thought argues that shamanic trance states drove cave art production. Artists in altered states of consciousness saw visions arising from the universal structure of the human nervous system and depicted them on cave walls, which they understood as membranes between the human and spirit worlds. David Lewis Williams developed this theory in The Mind in the Cave, 2002. Its main objection is that it imposes a specific Southern African Sen cosmology universally, a cross-cultural extrapolation many anthropologists find unjustified. This theory is controversial, and deliberately so. Its proponents argue that the evidence demands an explanation outside the conventional framework. Critics counter that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and that the evidence presented, while suggestive, does not yet meet that standard. The debate continues in peer-reviewed literature. Perhaps the most unconventional theory suggests that symbolic communication marked territorial boundaries and social identity between competing human groups, with shared motifs, hand stencils, geometric signs, specific animal species, functioning as visual language conveying group membership or alliance. Ian Davidson and William Noble advanced this view. Its principal objection is that identical motifs appearing across vast geographic distances would then imply continent-spanning social networks for which there is no supporting archaeological evidence. What is striking about this debate is not merely that experts disagree. That is normal and healthy in science. What is striking is the quality of the disagreement. Serious researchers, working from the same body of evidence, reaching genuinely different conclusions. That level of fundamental disagreement, when it persists over decades, is a signal that something important has not yet been understood. The question is not which of these theories is right. The question is whether any of them is right, or whether the truth is something that none of the current frameworks has yet been able to capture. The case surrounding Ice Age cave art, the 40,000-year-old paintings that rewrote human history, does not rest on speculation alone. What distinguishes this investigation from pure mythology is the existence of documented, physical, verifiable evidence. material that has been examined by credentialed researchers and whose authenticity is not seriously disputed. What is disputed is its interpretation. Let us review the most significant documented evidence as objectively as possible. We are not going to cherry-pick the data that supports a preferred conclusion. We are going to lay out what exists and let you draw your own assessment. Physical evidence supporting this account includes uranium-thorium dating of thin calcite layers that have grown over the Sulawesi paintings provides minimum ages for the art beneath. Aubert et al.'s 2019 Nature paper and the 2023 Ling Karampuang study used this method to date the Indonesian paintings, showing that figurative art was being produced in Southeast Asia contemporaneously with or earlier than the European cave art tradition, implying a shared cognitive capacity rather than a single origin. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Investigators have documented pigment analysis using X-ray fluorescence and mass spectrometry has identified the precise mineral sources for ochre used at specific cave sites, tracing them to deposits kilometers away. The deliberate sourcing of particular minerals, transport over distance, and consistent application technique demonstrate organized, intentional artistic practice rather than spontaneous mark-making, countering arguments that early images were accidental or non-symbolic. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. On-site analysis revealed identical motifs, including hand stencils, horses, large bovids, and a specific set of geometric signs catalogued by Genevieve von Petzinger, appear independently in European and Southeast Asian cave art at the same time horizon. The geographic separation rules out direct cultural diffusion, suggesting the symbolic capacity underlying these images was already present in the common ancestor population before they dispersed across the globe. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Each individual piece of evidence might, in principle, be explained away. A single anomalous artifact might be misidentified. A single anomalous date might reflect contamination. A single anomalous eyewitness account might reflect misperception. The question is whether all of the evidence can be explained away, and whether the explanations required are more or less plausible than the evidence itself. When multiple independent lines of inquiry converge on the same conclusion, that convergence is the most powerful signal in empirical science. And that is exactly what we are seeing here. We have examined the history, the evidence, and the theories surrounding Ice Age cave art, the 40,000-year-old paintings that rewrote human history. Now, we need to ask the question that is sometimes overlooked in discussions of ancient mysteries. Why does this matter? What does it mean for us today? It would be easy to file this away as an interesting historical curiosity, a puzzle from a distant past with no bearing on our present lives. That would be a fundamental mistake. The questions raised by this case touch on issues that are directly relevant to who we are, where we came from, and what the human story actually looks like before the period covered by conventional history. The 2019 and 2023 Sulawesi discoveries permanently ended the Eurocentric account of where human symbolic thought originated. Ongoing fieldwork in Borneo has identified further painted caves, and surveys across Southeast Asia and Australia are finding art of comparable antiquity. Ancient DNA studies now connect the artists of Chauvet and Altamira to later European populations, grounding the art in real, traceable human lineages. Non-invasive documentation technologies, structured light scanning, photogrammetry, multispectral imaging, are recording fragile painted surfaces without physical contact, preserving sites that decades of tourist breath and lamp soot have already damaged. The fundamental question the art raises has not changed. At some point in deep prehistory, humans began externalizing their inner world onto stone. We still do not know precisely why or what it felt like to be the first person who did it. Furthermore, the tools available to investigate these questions are advancing rapidly. Satellite imaging, ground-penetrating radar, ancient DNA analysis, isotopic tracing, and deep-sea sonar are all providing capabilities that previous generations of researchers could only dream of. Cases that were genuinely unresolvable 10 years ago are now open to new analysis, and the findings, consistently, are expanding rather than contracting the mystery. The investigation continues. New discoveries are being made, new analyses are being published, new voices are entering the conversation from disciplines that were not previously part of the discussion. The answers, when they come, and they will come, will not merely solve a historical puzzle. They will force a fundamental revision of assumptions that underpin our entire understanding of human history and human potential. We have now walked through the complete case of Ice Age cave art, the 40,000-year-old paintings that rewrote human history, from the historical record, through the physical evidence, across the competing theories, and into the modern significance of what remains unresolved. What the story of cave art ultimately reveals is not just a historical puzzle. It is a mirror. It reflects our assumptions back at us, our assumptions about what ancient people were capable of, about how knowledge is gained and lost across the centuries, and about the relationship between what we know and what we merely think we know. The evidence presented in this documentary is real. The questions it raises are genuine. The debate among researchers is ongoing, and that is healthy. Science is not a set of conclusions. It is a process. And the process requires that we remain open to evidence that challenges what we thought we knew, however uncomfortable that challenge might be. If you came to this documentary as a skeptic, we hope the evidence gave you something to think about. If you came as a true believer, we hope the critical examination gave you a more nuanced picture. The truth, as always, lies in the evidence, not in what we want to be true. Thank you for watching. If this investigation sparked your curiosity, please subscribe to the channel. We publish new documentaries every week, covering the full range of historical mysteries that the mainstream has not yet adequately explained. Leave a comment below telling us which case you want us to investigate next. The conversation continues. The investigation never ends.